user, I click on one, I enter my name Samir .neki @ytc.com, and meaning it should be added, and then we do 2, and then you can see my name and your email ID. I can add one more for your reference. Let's say xy and xy@rt.com. And if you do the second list user, you are still able to see it. And then the third part is we exit our code, and that means we are exiting. Just to confirm, we can also load our database. So we go to our table, we do user, select rows from 10 to 1000, and you are able to see we are able to insert things from our Rust to our DB. Hello, I hope your Rust development is going great. So today we are going to look at how to attach the database into our Rust code. And this video will be used in the future videos as well, because today we are going to create a very scalable database. So let's create our project with cargo run Rust CLI. And then we go to our Visual Studio Code, we go to file, we create the new folder basically which we have created, and we open it. So today we are going to create different files. We are not going to write everything inside main.rs because it clutters main.rs, and then we cannot write a very scalable code. So the first file that we are going to create today is called model.rs. Basically this file will replicate how your database tables looks like. So it should be something like a structure. So we create a pub struct. Why pub? Because as you are going to use this structure outside your model.rs, it has to be a public structure. Otherwise you won't be able to use, because in Rust, everything is private outside your module, and inside your, like the same module, you can use anything. So, and every particular, every ID as well, like every attribute of this structure should be public as well. And that's what we are going to do. So we are going to do I64. Then we are going to take the pub name, which is basically should be a string. And then we have public email will also be a string. Now we have created the structure. As I explained in the previous video as well, we are going to use our derive crate. So basically what we are going to use hash, and then we are using derive, and then out of this we are going to use debug and serialize and deserialize. Why serialize and deserialize? Because we have to send this particular structure into our database, and that's why we have to deserialize and serialize it, because we are going to read it from as well. And to do that, we are going to use a crate called stdin. And as this is a new project, we have to add the crate. We get cargo 8 add stdin. cd Rust DB, because we are not inside the project itself, and that's why it was not able to do. So we do cargo add, and that basically install our crate. So we have done our crate as well. So we call it like, because everything is running now, we can use stdin, and then basically we can use our function called serialize, CRAILZE, and deserialize, DSERIALIZE. And this basically create our imports our serialize and deserialize. And now we can close the bracket, and then basically here we can use the deserialize as well. Maybe you're not able to see the errors in this particular file, so what we will do is that we will add it to our main.rs for now. So we are going to write model.rs. So this means that we are including our model basically into our main, and now our Rust analyzer is able to basically find it. Only a trait without a derive macro. We did use a derive macro here. I think it's because of we have to adjust something in the cargo.toml to make it work, but we can do that right now. So now we have added the module in the main.rust, and that's why you're able to see the error, because previously you were not able to find this file. Okay, so what we now use here, so we already have this Surday here, and I think we need to use a version. We don't need to use anything, and it should find serialize and deserialize here because it doesn't have a derived thing here, and that's why. So what we have to do is that we go to our cargo.demo, we have our surday, and then we basically write this here, and now basically this is our version, we version equal to, and then we have our features in which we mention our derived feature. And then we close it, and let's see if the model.serialize are gone, and now we have our model.rs. The next step is to create an environmental file. So what does this environmental file have? This will contain my database URL. So it will look like .env, and we write our database underscore URL. So currently I'm using MySQL for that. You can also download MySQL. It will look something like this, and you can download it from the Oracle website, and it's a very simple database to use. So I'm using MySQL, so it will look something like this. And then you have to write the username, which I have kept a very simple called root. My password is Rust GB. As I'm not hosting it anywhere, I'm still okay to share my password. Otherwise, you know, who knows, someone can crash my whole database. So I have it as localhost, and then the port is 3306, and I will basically name it users for now, and I will save it. So this is my database URL. The next step is to create one more file called db.rs. This file will have everything which is related to our database. That means our queries, basically how to connect, and every function which is related to a database query. Okay, let's start writing it. So first function that we need to create here is to initialize our database. So we use pub async. Why I'm using async here, I think you already know what async means. It means asynchronous. But why I'm using async? Because I'm using a library called SQLx, and SQLx is an async library. I think now you know that if we are using async, we are going to use Tokio, because our main.rs is ultimately a synchronous library, and to make it asynchronous we have to depend on Tokio. So let's create a function called initdb, init underscore db, and then basically it will return a result. Obviously the result will be error, or it would be pool. Now I have to here include one important thing, or a new crate called cargo add SQLx, because we are going to use a few things from this crate, so I'm adding it beforehand. And then basically I'm going to use here use SQLx, and then I'm going to use brackets, and I'm already going to use this particular module inside here. Otherwise, basically, as I told you as well before, that your Rust analyzer will not run it and you won't see any errors, and that's why I'm using it here. And it will have two things like MySQL comma pool, and then basically I can close it out, and hopefully it works. Now basically in the result window I am going to return pool. I will tell you what does pool means, and here I'm going to have MySQL, and then our main function start. Now pool and MySQL basically means that it's a database connection pool specifically for MySQL, which is provided by SQLx. So this is what means. So pool will be your return type always, that you are basically like it's a database connection pool. Okay, now the other library which also I need to invoke is called .env. Why I'm using .env is to read our environmental variable which I have set in .env file. So we do cargo add .env. We press enter, and this is how .env is done. Then basically we say okay, no MySQL is in the root. My SQL. Okay, let's see. And then we use .nv ::.env. So basically this is the file which will basically read out my environmental variable, and now we are going to use it here. So it still says MySQL MySQL is in the root. The item gated is behind called MySQL feature. So what we need to do is that we need to basically, as it says, that we have to add features, and that's what we are going to do. So we go to our toml file. We already have our SQLx. We are going to write the same thing what we did here, and then instead of these features we are going to replace with something else. So the first feature that we want is called MySQL. The next feature we want is runtime Tokio, and the third feature here we want is macros. And we can click on save here, and then we can go to dvo.rs, and it works because now we have MySQL, right? So let's move back to our code. Now we have already this. Now we do .env .ok. That means it will read a file basically if there's a file environmental file present in your code, and then basically let db URL, and we are reading the db URL from this particular file. We say, and we always use snake case while defining the Rust variables, and then we say env where, and then basically we say database URL, which is your environmental variable here. So we have our db URL with us. Now we do let pool is equal to pool, and then we use MySQL again, MySQL, and we say connect. We don't have any connect here. Should be. It says at least we don't have any connect, but let's see if we can find it later. And then we say ampersand. We pass our db URL here, and we do something called await. You know, right? Await is used. So basically, as this is an asynchronous operation, we have to use to make it synchronous. We use the await. It currently says pool. Actually, it should be : and then MySQL, and then basically it says connect db URL. It says something inside the db URL says mismatch type expected a string. The result is basically a string and a variable. So that means we have to use a question mark here so that it just becomes a string, and now it works, right? Good. Now we have our everything here. Basically, pool is basically your MySQL database connection, and this is the asynchronous function that we're using await. Basically, dbURL is your string slice, and question mark you already know that is basically propagates the error in case if there's an error to your caller function. So the first query we are going to write here is called SQLx query, and then we are going to write our query, which is basically r hash, and then inverted commas. We press enter here, and we write create table if not exists. So if you're running for the first time, obviously your table will not exist, and you have to write a query users, and basically we need here 3 functions as we have declared in our model.rs. The first is id, which should be of big int, and we write it as auto increment because we are not taking this id from the user, we are just auto incrementing, and it is also a primary key. If you know bit of SQL, primary key means that it should be unique and it cannot be non-zero or something like this. And then we have name, which is our string, so we put it as varchar of 255, and it can be not, I think not null, yes. And then the third thing we are going to put is email, which is basically also the same of varchar type and not null. So we are going to put this as well, and yes, this would be fine, right? And then we put a hash here, which means our query has ended, and then we use dot execute, and here you have to basically send your pool variable, which the pool you have created. Again, it's a asynchronous function, and then you have to handle the error correctly, and if everything works correctly, you return OK of pool, because as you know that we are returning the result of pool. So this takes two argument, one was supplied, and let me see, it takes two argument, one was supplied and other was not. Maybe there is some error, but we can see about that. So I thought pool results, pool already returned two things. Okay, so pool, if pool is the correct variable, we can always basically have error, right? So can have this here. Does it take? It accept. Okay, basically this is error, and I'm just writing anything here, so it will not do anything, and we are expecting not to have any kind of errors. The second function that we need to create, and it will also do the same thing, is basically we need to add the user. So we use the public async again, and we use function add underscore user. Here basically, as we got the pool from the last thing, so we have to send the pool. Pool POOL, which will be of type ampersand pool, and then MySQL. The second is name, which will be of type reference str. The third will be of email, which is also a type of reference str. And then it will also return basically result for us, and the result you can just put two empty brackets for now, otherwise you can use always the dynamic error that we were using before as well. Okay, and then we basically start our brackets here, and then we are done. Now here you need to basically insert, so you also have to write a query, which again start with the same thing, is write something starts with this, and then you write capital IS and INSERT, insert into users. Then you write here which columns you want to insert, name, email, and then values, which are basically your question mark, and you put a comma in between, and then you can close this, but you will not entirely close it out, but you will put something like this. And then actually here you can remove hash, you don't need hash, and I don't think you need R as well. And this becomes a query, and then you bind basically as you want to send the name, so you set name here, and then you don't bind again, and then you use email, and then you do the same thing. You use execute, where you mention your ampersand pool, and then basically this should be await again, because you know this is asynchronous, and then you put a question mark, and it's done. And as now this is the result, so you get OK, and then you do this is done. I think I have to write AYNC, and which is why it's showing wrong. Now we have our add users as well. The next step we need to do is basically to list users. That's the last function that we are doing. We have created a table, we have added the user, and now basically we will list them, right? So we just do this, and we do list users. In this, we are just going to send one of the statement, that is pool of MySQL, but we are going to get two things from here. So we are going to get result, and the same thing is like an empty thing here. And here I'm going to use let users equal to SQLx query as. You will see that I'm not using query here. I'm using a different called query as, and you will see in a bit why I'm doing that. First, let me write the query. So where I'm writing the query is I'm writing the query to user, comma, select ID, comma, name, comma, email and here select should also be capital SELECT, and then I can write user small, and then it has done, and then I just do dot. Is this okay? It's something's problem. It says database, set database URL to use all macros online, cargo SQL prepare to update the query cache. Okay. Okay. From row means it needs a macro here, but it's okay. Means it's not a problem. We can also do that later as well. It says that we need to basically the macro doesn't match from row. So basically the model that we have implemented here is like the user. That's why we have written a user here. Should implement a macro called from row, and now it will work, should work. So now what the error says, set database URL to use query macro from unit this and this, which is fine. Set the or run. Okay. I can actually use cargo SQLx prepare. Help with a command with a similar name fix exists. Heavy all the cargo. Okay, let's find this error before, because I think this is fine, but we can find this error. So what I'm going to do here is that I wanted to do a fetch all from here. So we do fetch all, and then we basically obviously pass the pool here, and then we use await, because this is going to be an asynchronous command as well, and then we close it with this, and then we write in the end okay, because obviously the error was not very simple to find, but I'm going to write you the steps so that you can do the same thing to fix it. So first thing you need to write in your basically in your command line is this command. It will install SQLx CLI, because when we are trying to run the cargo SQLx prepare, it was not able to find anything related to SQLx. So first you need to install it. Second thing, which we have done in this way as well. So basically this is basically your schema. So, and as currently there is no schema of users in your database, which is true, because if you see, I don't have anything called users here. Either I can create a new one, which I don't want to do, or I can just use the world which already exists. So I'm using the world one which already exists, and that you need to set as a database URL inside your terminal. So basically the second command you will run if you're running on Windows is this thing. And third you will do is the cargo SQLx prepare, basically which will set up everything which you need, and it will create this SQLx file inside your thing, and you need to also git committed. I will also do the same as well. And then everything works. So basically you have like this command will work. The few things which I've also changed here is that I've used a crate called anyhow. So you simply do cargo add anyhow, and then you don't have to pass multiple results. You can just have a single result. You don't have to pass two result into this result function template, basically like a okay and the error. You just have to pass a single one. Now we have a user as a vector. So what we do is that we loop into users and print everything we need. So we use println, we say users list, and then we press enter, and for user and users, for user, and let's say to mark it as users to differentiate between users and user, we say println, and then we say, do we need ID? Okay, let's print the ID as well. And then basically you have this curly braces here to denote that you are going to fill an item later here, and then we write name and then email. And then we attach our everything, which is basically is user. So this we close it here, and then we have comma, then we have user dot ID, user dot name, and user dot email. So basically what your query as is doing is binding your user, which is basically you have created in model.rs with the return value of your select ID. So it's basically binding them together on your own. And so that's why you don't have to bind it. And that's why it is really useful command. And let's use print ln rather than just like n print, because then every time we do get a new line, and this is done. Same way, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to print a end statement here as well, like user added, just to make sure that everything works correctly, perfectly fine. Right? Obviously these are not used, so it doesn't show anything here. Now we are done with our db.rs. It took us some time, but we were successful in doing so. So we can congratulate ourselves. Now we do our menu.rs. The menu.rs is basically your CLI interface to the user, in which we are going to create a loop list which will show every time, like, okay, what inputs user want. You want to add a user again, or you want to delete, like show the list. That's what we are currently doing. So we do mod CLI, because I want my errors as well here. So now to write the CLI, it's very simple. We are going to use few new libraries, but bear with me. So we are going to again start with our async function, basically, which is function start menu, which will accept pool, which will be of pool type of MySQL, and it will return a result, and then it will only have one bracket because we are going to use our anyhow library, and then we are here. Obviously it doesn't work here because we anyhow colon result user anyhow result, and now it works. And here we can delete the pool because the pool is a capital variable. Perfect. And then every time we do that, we have to always return okay. Now the main thing is that we are going to give user 3 choice. So basically we are going to loop, like this is an infinite loop, and we are going to loop 3 choices every time. So we are going to say print user. So it should be print ln always. So print in a new line, choose your option. And then every time we will just add 3 options. So first is add a new user. Second is list all users. And third is exit. And we put brackets in end of everyone. And then we have 4 commands. The next step is basically get input from the user. You know that we can do the same thing with stdin, but the difference is that we are going to use a new crate today, like the inquire crate, which provide us more benefit from stdin. So it's an interactive CLI tool, and basically it has a user friendly prompt. So what you need to do is that you go here, you did cargo add inquire, and this will inquire the new crate, and you are done. Now we go back to here and we see use inquire because it's still loading, and now you should be able to see the inquire. It is going to load everything, and now you have inquire, and then we are going to use text from here. Perfect. Now it's very simple. You say let choice is equal to text : new, and you just write enter choice 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to prompt the user, and this actually returns error. So you have to like this and you are done. Really, you're done. And then I'm going to match my choices with different things. Match choice. And obviously we need to trim it to remove extra spaces because user can do mistakes. And then here it's simple. If we have the first choice, we are going to call the database API called add user. So for that we have one, and then we use our equal to match it. And what we need to do here is that we need to ask user few things, like it's add a new user, so we need to give user two more choices. So let name equal to, so enter your name, and the second thing is basically your email. Same thing again, and you just write email here, enter your email, right? And then you need to call basically add user from your DB crate, which you know what it's going to take. And I think pool should be equal because pool you are passing from here, and yeah, it's okay. You need to pass this here, and then everything should work. Why this add user still show? So it shows that it's a string attribute found string. Okay, could be a problem, but what we can do is that we know that first thing we need to pass it as a reference because everything is taken as a reference, and then we just call save, and we can also do to underscore cr. Let's see whether it works or not. So it still doesn't work because it says expected colon for found future, expected this, considered using a semicolon, means obviously I need to use a semicolon here, and then everything works through. I need to still do toString because I don't think so, and they should work. Yes, perfect. So we have our first choice with us. For the second choice, it's pretty simple. We just don't do anything. We just call the list users from the pool. So we just do list users, it should show us, and then we put our semicolon because we already have a for loop inside list user, so we don't need to do anything. For the last thing, we just need to exit the loop, so basically we break the loop. So what we do here is that we write 3 and we write println exiting, close the bracket, and call break. And for anything else, basically the default value you write println. So every time the new line println, and then you say invalid choice, try again. And we have written our we have, okay, what does it says? A match without braces. This statement is not surrounded by body. Okay, so what we do is that we put this here in brackets, and it should now be okay. Yes, so we are now fine. It says add users use implemented of future that must be used unless used without await or poll them. Okay, but I think I did use the await there, but it's okay. We can also use await here, and it's await, and then I have to use question mark, and then await and question mark. Okay, perfect. Now we have done this. So we have created our CLI dot. Just it's the interactive CLI basically, which can provide everything to user. Now it's time to write our mate. We already have model, DB, and CLI, and now we will just do simple things like to call everything here so that everything works fine. The first thing we need to do is to make it our function asynchronous. So for that we have to do call tokio main. And if we have to use here it should get Tokio directly, but somehow it doesn't. So fail to resolve unlinked create Tokio. I think I haven't installed Tokio yet, so that's why. cargo at tokio. Now tokio is done. Now it should be able to resolve it, and then yes, and then we are going to have a return statement here. So first thing we need to make our async. So our main function is async, and now we result which only have one parameter. And how we can do that, I've already told you multiple times. We have a crate called anyhow which have a result. So now this is done. First thing we need to connect to DB. So let pool is equal to init is it able to find init database dot await and then question mark. So basically here we are basically initializing our database. Like if the user table is not created, just create it out. Then we use our println statement to print connected to DB, and this is fine. And then we have to return OK as well in the end, and there we can return anything here. So let's see what the issue is. So everything is fine. Obviously we haven't used pool yet. For that we have to call our start menu, start start menu, and then pass our pool. Obviously it's an asynchronous function, so you have to use a wait, and then you put colon, and you are done. So let's see if everything works or doesn't work. What it says, so it gives error, could not resolve main in Tokyo, could not find main. It is because we have added our toml file here, but again there are few things we need to do. We need to use the Tokyo full, so we have to add some features to the Tokyo library. So we are going to write here, and here we are going to say full and this, and then we close our brackets with this and we save it. Is our error is gone, everything is gone. So let's do a demo of our code. So we do cargo. So waiting for the file lock or the build directory. Okay. So it will take some time to build, and if you have watched this video till now, please make sure that you subscribe and like this video. So it says error read from database. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual that correspond to the SQL version for the right syntax near primary key. Yeah, okay, could be an issue. So we will just change it for now. So we won't write primary key here. So what we will do is write, instead of primary key, we will write C, not null, and unique, because as we have been told that the primary key is a combination of two things, add null and unique, and we just do cargo run again. So we are at our option that we wanted. Let me increase the font for you guys. So we are, so if you want to add a new user, I click on one, I enter my name Samir .neki @ytc.com, and meaning it should be added, and then we do 2, and then you can see my name and your email ID. I can add one more for your reference. Let's say xy and xy@rt.com. And if you do the second list user, you are still able to see it. And then the third part is we exit our code, and that means we are exiting. Just to confirm, we can also load our database. So we go to our table, we do user, select rows from 10 to 1000, and you are able to see we are able to insert things from our Rust to our DB. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have good learning experience. Till the next time, have a nice day.